Hi, my name's Phil. I like talking about politics, and in this video I like to discuss the latest humiliation that the Conservative government are subjecting our nation to. Namely that UNICEF, for the first time, will be feeding some children in the UK because our government have abandoned the poor. And is our government embarrassed by this? Are they? I'm embarrassed by this. Are they? No. In fact, they think that UNICEF, the UN organisation, are the ones who should be embarrassed. But first, if you'd like to be notified of daily news and politics, please subscribe to the channel and click the bell notification icon. So, yeah, we now seem to be a third world country. Yes, I know that the actual official definition of first, second and third world refers to political alignments during the Cold War. That's in the past. In the UK, third world has long been a term used to refer effectively to countries with high levels of severe poverty. So severe, in fact, that international agencies and charities need to help out because their own governments cannot do so. Well, with this understanding of the term, the UK is now a third world country. Only in our case, it's not because we are poor or we don't have the infrastructure in place, although we do have the same levels of government corruption. It is because our government simply cannot be bothered. They are beyond simply heartless and actively malicious in this regard, in fact. I think I'll explain a little bit more about that in a moment. We are the 6th largest economy in the world. Yeah, I know we used to be the 5th. I know Brexiteers still think we're the 5th. But no. See, what happened is the Conservatives came to power, wrecked the economy with their, I'm going to use Ian Blackford's term again, extreme Tory Brexit, and now we're not. But 6th is still pretty good, though I have a feeling it will be 7th before the next general election. France are only a tiny little bit behind us, and they're not doing as badly as we are economically. But even 7th is pretty damn rich. That's making a lot of money, because that's the size of the economy. We're not just talking about wealth as such, we're talking about size of the economy, how much wealth we generate each year. We certainly generate enough wealth, even in our relatively crippled Brexit guise, to feed our own people. We choose not to. It's as simple as that. We saw the government's disdain for doing its duty this year. On 2 separate occasions, they attempted to leave children, the poorest children, going hungry this year with the free school meals fiasco, and they were only made to U-turn on both occasions as a result of high public profile campaigns and political campaigns as well against them. And the cost of doing this is a small fraction of the public money they've thrown at their friends and supporters. See, I used to think when I was growing up, a bit naive about politics, I sort of would think about it this way. You know, the country had a certain pot of money from taxes, and the way Labour wanted to spend it is Labour wanted to spend it on healthcare and education, social care, you know, that sort of thing, and which endeared me to the Labour Party. And the Conservatives would rather spend it on things like defence, you know, nuclear weapons. That was how I saw it, but that's not actually the way it's happening, is it? Certainly not with this Conservative government. No. It's because they don't want to prioritise different important elements of national infrastructure. It's not just that they've got a difference of priorities. They want to give it to people who are already wealthy, their friends, their donors. It's absolute corruption. And I'm not actually talking about the contracts that they've given to companies with political links who at least delivered something, albeit at exorbitant rates, but they did at least deliver what they were supposed to, and it was at a price agreed by the government. So in many ways, those companies I don't so much criticise, because it's the government's fault that they paid them too much, but they did at least get the stuff. No, I'm talking about the money that was given to these friends and donors, where what we got back, if we got anything back at all, it was not what was ordered. That amount still dwarfs that which is needed to stop people being hungry and in some cases destitute. And the thing that makes me really frustrated by this isn't just me completely at odds with the general character of my nation. Because that happened. There are some aspects of my character, of course, that are completely at odds with the general population. I understand that. I don't actually find that all that frustrating, even if I think I'm in the right, because that's just the way it is. Now, even most Conservative voters are against this basic inhumanity. This is why Theresa May, when she was Prime Minister, denied poverty at this level even existed. It just didn't exist anywhere in the country because she had to say that. She talked about jams, people who were just about managing. She had to force this narrative onto the public that, yes, there were people struggling, because she couldn't deny that. She couldn't deny that there were people who struggled to make ends meet. But she had to sort of say, but no one's actually doing without. Yeah, they're struggling, but they can just about manage. Because we've put just enough in place. That's the Conservative idea. We put just enough in place that you're okay, but we want to give you that incentive to work, you lazy bastards. Now, most people have no idea about the real state of affair in people's lives. Many may do very soon if levels of unemployment really skyrocket. They've already gone up substantially. But during the last attempt to starve kids, you know, there was a Conservative MP, for example, who tried to claim that all the funding was already there. We don't need to put more in, it's already there, there's already enough. The problem is that parents are spending it on hard drugs and prostitutes. So desperate are they to prevent the public seeing what's really going on? Not so desperate that they'll spend the relatively small sum of funds to actually stop it, mind you. And now here we are, UNICEF, the UN organisation providing help to children in the most desperate of circumstances around the world, is for the first time going to help feed some kids in the UK. I mean, reading into the stats, it's of course harrowing. I mean, they're going to be helping out some kids in an area of London. But if you look at the UK as a whole, so in spring, government figures, there were 2.4 million children in what is termed food insecure households in the UK. 2.4 million children. That's a lot. Now, how much that is really depends from country to country. Different countries have different sized populations. In this country, that is 20% of our kids. 1 in every 5 children in the UK, in one of the wealthiest countries in the world, does not have a secure source of food. That's breathtaking. Now, before I talk about another shocking stat, I want to bring the leader of the House of Commons and all-round bellend, Jacob Rees-Mogg, into this. Now, I want to do this for a couple of reasons. First of all, he is extremely wealthy. He is not satisfied with, and when I say extremely wealthy, I don't mean like, you know, Conservatives, they've got a few million. No, he's got tens of millions. He's got that much money. Even that's not enough for him, bear in mind, because he can't be asked to pay his taxes properly, and he shoves a load of it in opaque offshore accounts where he won't talk about it. And somehow, despite being a government minister, he doesn't have to talk about it, which is absolutely ridiculous. He also has 6 children. Now, I have to say the proportions weren't quite right. I couldn't quite remember how many he had. If he had 5, it would have been perfect. He's got 6, that'll do. We'll imagine the scenario. So, Rees-Mogg, very, very wealthy. Not a few million, like I said, tens of millions. Very, very wealthy. Now, imagine that you are visiting him and you managed not to punch him in the face, let's just say, and you saw that one of his children was badly malnourished. He was choosing not to feed one of his children. In actual fact, it's 1.2 of his children, but we'll just say 1 for now. We're not going to chop a child up. What would you think of such a person who was feeding, you know, their children, but there was one child, you know, you're not eating, sorry. We'll give you a few scraps every few days. How about that? What would you think of such a person? And yet, that is what the UK is. That is why I am embarrassed. A fabulously wealthy parent deliberately failing to feed a 5th of its children. Now, the other reason I'm bringing Lord Snooty into it is because what he said of the news. So, he opened his pie hole again in the House of Commons, and whenever he does, nothing good comes out of it. He said in Parliament that UNICEF should be ashamed for helping to feed the kids that he and his government colleagues can't be asked to do themselves. He's called it an outrage that an outside agency is going to come, a charity is going to help feed the kids that he can't be asked to. What he's basically saying is he wants those children to starve. That's what he would prefer. Because Jacob Rees-Mogg, a while ago, he was talking about how much he enjoyed charity. Oh, he loved charity. He likes food banks, he says. He thinks food banks are brilliant. Oh, it shows the charitable nature of people. It's like, yeah, but where I think a German comedian said a few years ago, he said, in Germany it's a bit different. We don't need charities because we have the government. See, that's the thing. Where charities act, by and large, I think, to be fair, you do sometimes have charities act in a way that you wouldn't necessarily say government should get involved in. But quite a lot of charities, let's face facts, are doing the work that government should be doing. And this is a classic case in point. And yet Jacob Rees-Mogg says that this charity should be ashamed of itself for helping feed children that would otherwise have no reliable source of food as a result of the COVID pandemic. This creature has no understanding of the word shame. I really wish someone would teach him. And I remind you, this is the same person, if I can call him that, who said that the victims of the Grenfell fire, who fell victim because the cladding on their block of flats was highly flammable and the safety tests had been fiddled, deliberately fiddled to allow it to be used. That's the reason. But no, this arsehole said that the victims died due to their own lack of common sense. That's the sort of person we're dealing with here. And this is the sort of government we're dealing with, because another terrifying stat, since the first wave of COVID and October, an additional 900,000 children were added to the free school meals register. This is for kids who lack food security at home. And it was something the government were boasting about. Oh, we've put loads more kids onto free school meals, aren't we great? No, it's not great. It means there are many more children who need them. You have plunged that many more children into poverty. That's what it means. Nearly 1 million extra kids were added to the register in just a few months. And this is because the Conservatives are heartless at the best of times, and all too often they stand back and allow charities to step in and cover for their greed. It's like, great, this charity is going to do this work, so we can spend that public money instead on our mates. We can pocket it. Isn't that nice? But the government's response to the pandemic didn't so much keep the gap between the haves and the have-nots widening, but it branched off and caught out millions more people in a very short space of time. Millions of those jams, as May like to call them, were suddenly no longer just about managing and not managing at all. And all because the government were happy to pump billions into already wealthy hands, and they ignored those actually in need. Because that is the effect. Under cover of COVID, the government have been absolutely raiding the coffers, the nation's coffers. And there is just as they've been siphoning that money off into the hands of the already wealthy really quickly, we've also seen the impact on the poorest really quickly. They've been caught out like a flash flood. And this particular help that UNICEF are offering, as I say, is for children particularly badly affected in a part of London. So here we have children in London, which is the 4th largest city economy in the world. So the 4th richest city effectively in the world. In the UK, the 6th largest national economy in the world, needing a handout from a UN charity more used to providing aid to children in countries that would, by most measures, be classed as poor. We don't even have a ridiculously large population to excuse this mess either. We have a moderately sized population for the size of our economy. We don't get to claim that, okay, we might have this size economy, but it's got to be spread amongst less many people. No, it's not many people. Significantly less than the countries that are above us in this table. And way less than India, that's just overtaken us in terms of population size. I mean, how did we get to this point? Because as far as I'm concerned, it's not that complicated. Here's the fact. The Conservatives fundamentally do not care. Okay. But the general public do. And we also know that when the general public get on their high horse, the government are forced to follow. They have to U-turn. We've seen that several times this year. So why is this still going on? The problem, of course, is lack of information. The public fundamentally do not know. Basically, our worse than useless media again. But there we are. The government should be desperately ashamed, but they aren't. I am desperately ashamed. They even have the nerve to go on the attack over this, which is even more embarrassing as a Briton. The day cannot come soon enough for me when they are kicked out of power and have to retreat to their ill-gotten gains. I'm one of those who harbours no hopes that they will ever face justice. It won't happen, but at least they can be removed from being able to do more of this. But those are my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. I hope you found the video interesting. If you did, don't forget to click the like button. And if you'd like to support the channel further, please also click the Patreon link for details. And until next time, I'll see you later.